Well, if you'll be turning to Psalms 19, we'll be joining together in just a moment. I want to just let you know again where we are in our series. During the next 2 weeks, at least, we're going to be talking about the heavens and the earth that God created. If you'll look up on the screen, I'd like to show you our purpose for today. Paul, if you'll put that up there for us. Our purpose for today is to look at what God has made for all of His glory and for His good. Now, I'm going to be talking about a young earth. I'm describing to you the things that God has created, and I'm going to share with you some things that you may not even know about, but we're going to talk about it today. I hope I've got some things here to help you understand where we are with this. I'm not quite over my head yet. I may be in a couple of weeks as we start talking about some other things, but I'm sharing with you what I have learned through the years, the research that I've been doing, and the point of apologetics. That was one of the things that was shared that we would like to grow further in and deeper in and understand what it is that the world is teaching that is contrary to what God is teaching. So we're working our way through that. So join me now, please, at Psalm 19. We're going to read the first 9 verses. The heavens are telling of the glory of God, and their expanse is declaring the work of His holy hands. Day to day pours forth speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. There is no speech, nor their words. Their voice is not heard. Their line has gone out through the earth, and their utterances in the end of the world. In them He has placed a tent for the sun, which is a bridegroom coming out of his chamber. It rejoices as a strong man to run his house. It's rising from one end of the heavens, and its circuit, or revolution, if you will, to the other end of them, and there is nothing hidden from its heat. The law of the Lord is perfect, restoring the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord are true. They are righteous altogether. So the heavens are declaring the glory of God. The heavens tell us of His glory and His worth and His honor. It was Tuesday night on Fox Network that a slick guy, this guy coming up here, was walking around the earth, and he was walking on the earth, and he was telling how many times. Well, he said that the earth has cooled and heated so many times that they can't even count. So finally, the earth created an atmosphere. And at first it was a canopy, and that disappeared, and it became the atmosphere that we have today. Then 4 billion years ago, out of some primordial goo, he was telling us on that show on Fox that life just all of a sudden oozed out of this primordial goo, and that life started evolving into single cells, and those single cells, all of a sudden, they started developing blood vessels. Hazel,
sorry.
Isn't that nuts? It started developing blood vessels, and then it developed into fish, and it developed into plants, and then it developed into animals, and then there was humans. And then some 65 million years ago, a very large asteroid came and blasted into our Earth and created a cloud of dust that and a hardy high-ho silver that encircled all the Earth and killed all the dinosaurs. And you know what? There's sediment around the Earth. The entire Earth has this worldwide sediment. That's true. That's the one thing they said that's true. Except that they're saying that's from this asteroid. You know what it's from? And you can find it in China and Russia and in Australia and the U.S. You know what it's from? It's from a worldwide flood that happened 4,500 years ago that the Bible tells us about, and that Noah and his family and and all the animals were saved because of what God did. And incidentally, life began a little over 6,000 years ago, and not 4.1 billion years ago did something ooze out of some primordial goo and develop blood vessels. But again, we're going to talk about carbon dating and so forth in another day. We're going to talk about the heavens and the earth today because they declare the glory of God. Did you know that the world turns clockwise from west to east at the rate of 460 meters per second, or a little over 1,500 feet per second at the equator? But if it was turning clockwise, then everything would be reversed. The Americas would be like the Sahara Desert. We'd have this arid, hot temperatures all around us. Europe would be in ice and snow, and Russia would have the temperatures of America. Besides that, if we were going clockwise, then the oceans would not have enough bacteria to balance off with the plankton. And believe it or not, the plankton would produce too much oxygen, and we'd die. I've never heard of having too much oxygen, but that's what my source was a Lyme scientist, so you'll just have to go along with that source. Incidentally, you already know that the Earth is on an elliptical orbit around the sun at roughly 365 days a year. So what happens if we slow down or if we sit straight up on our axis? What would happen? Well, if we slow down, then the days and the nights would be longer. Ask people from Alaska how fun that is. So without the sun for 12 hours a day, or our nights would be longer than they would be what? Colder. They would be colder at night. Our plants and trees wouldn't get enough sunshine to do the things that they need to do. And we get more, and Sue Ann, I would get more grumpy if we were having longer nights. That's right. It would affect us that way. You know that Oregon actually has more suicides than any other place in the United States because they have so much rain up there. And without the tilt of the earth, then the polar caps melt, and there would be temperature changes all around the world. Not only would the oceans rise, but California's Governor Newsom might finally be right that climate change might actually be the reason for the fires in California. And there would also be freezing cold in Jamaica and other islands. So there would be a huge difference if we were sitting up on our axis. And if we were going any faster, the Earth would be thrown off of its current orbit, and we would be too close and too far away from the sun at certain times of the year. So we would have the weather of Antarctica during some parts of the year, and we would have the weather of the Sahara during some parts of the year. So what am I saying about all of this? Now listen, even the lying scientists admit that we are at the perfect tilt of the earth, moving at the right counterclockwise rotation at just the right speed, so that our days and nights are perfect for our vegetation and life, for all of us to exist on the earth. Our atmosphere is just the right filtration to protect us from the worst of the sun's rays and from the particulates that constantly bombard the earth from outer space every day. So even the lying scientists admit that we are at just the right distance from the sun, but spinning at just the right speed, with just the right tilt of the earth in order to exist as life we know it. Can you believe that all accidentally happened, Dwight? We are just under 93 million miles from the sun, so that it takes the light of the sun to reach the earth in 8 minutes, and the sun's 10,000 degrees heat to warm the earth, according to the elliptical orbit of the earth around the sun. And as I alluded to earlier, if we were any closer, then our days would be much hotter and intolerable for most of us. And if we were farther away, then we would be in deep winter all year long. So we are at just the right tilt, spinning at just the right speed in an elliptical orbit around the sun, so that we have seasons and that the earth is properly changing for our lives to exist and for the seasons to change. So we have just the right amount of oxygen to carbon dioxide ratio. And we are protected by our atmosphere from the sun and from the space debris that is constantly coming at us every day. Accidental, huh? And then there's gravity. I have a joke, but I won't say it because there's too many gender that would beat me up afterwards. I don't know what that is. I'm sorry. Hang on just a second, because it's bothering me. Does that change much? Is that okay? Then there's gravity. The gravity, you know what, literally holds, if we hate it or love it, it holds us together. It holds where we are. If the gravity of the universe was stronger than our Earth, we would be potato-shaped. We would be potato-shaped, as well as the moon. We would weigh a whole lot more. That's not good. And getting around would be quite difficult. If the gravity was less, then common things like sugar cubes would not stay together. You wouldn't be able to put mixes together to make me a wonderful cake or pie smear, because they wouldn't stay together if gravity was less. The earth and moon would be elliptical shaped, and the tilt of the earth would make life very harsh to live in. Besides that, if the gravity of the universe was different, we would either be pulled closer to the sun and burned up, or if it was lesser, then we would be pushed out from the sun, so that we would be so cold that we would find it extremely hard and maybe even die. Gravity even affects the inside heat of the earth and the inside heat of the moon. There are about 1,800 miles of mantle from the Earth's surface to the core. Part of the core is solid and part of it is fluid, very, very hot. And it's very, very hot. All of these things are affected by the universe's and the Earth's gravity, spinning at just the right tilt, at just the right speed. And according to the lion scientists, the man in the moon is just another pretty face of the Earth. They say, as the Earth was accidentally forming 4.5 billion years ago, a planetoid-sized asteroid, the size of Mars, smashed into the Earth and splashed out molten mantle, and that formed the moon. Since then, the moon has been moving away from the Earth at the rate of 4 centimeters a year. So according to the lion scientists, the moon has been moving at 1.5 inches per year away from the Earth, so that it's now 238,855 miles away from the Earth, and still moving at 1.5 inches away from the Earth. Incidentally, the lion scientists want you to know that the Earth is slowing down because of the Earth's... the moon actually has a rotation that's slower than us. It's causing the Earth to slow down a little bit. So they just want you to know that if you need something else to worry about, then they want you to know that you can worry about that. Because every 50,000 years, it's going to be a problem. And I'm pretty sure that if it's going to be a problem, it's going to happen this year. Because this is the craziest, weirdest year ever. So it's going to be a problem that will happen this year. But the truth is that the moon affects the tides of the earth. Roughly every 28 days, the moon has an effect on the people of the earth. Since we're mostly what? Water. And high tides are created every 12 hours per day. So I've described to you, and what I've shared with you already, that we are spinning counterclockwise, which gives the countries the weather that we have on this earth and the right mix of bacteria and plankton in the ocean, so that we have the balance of oxygen and nitrogen and carbon dioxide in which we're able to live. And I've described to you that we are spinning at just the right speed on a 23 93-degree tilt that is just right to keep the polar ice caps cold and the ocean seas within their boundaries. And the rate of rotation is just the right angle to allow us to have the length of days and nights that we have, so that the plants can have enough sunlight, and so that the ocean currents and weather can occur at just the right way that it is, and so that it's always predictable. It's predictable rate of gravity. There's a predictable time of tides, influence of the moon that affects our lives here on earth. It's predictable. The mantle of the earth is the right thickness, it's the right amount of gravity that creates the viscosity of the core of the earth to be both solid and molten at just the right rate, so that we don't have a bunch of volcanoes popping up all the time. And our atmosphere mostly protects us from the harm of the sun's rays and from the constant space debris that bombards us every day. Now, church family, if you haven't figured it out yet, that's a whole lot of perfect. That's a whole lot of perfect so that life exists on this planet. And even the lying scientists are baffled by the many coincidences. I don't know what that is.
Can you turn your mic down?
I'm going to turn my mic off. So that life exists on the planet, and even the lying scientists are baffled at the many coincidences that if the tilt of the earth changed, or we went into a perfect orbit, that we slowed down, then life on earth would not exist as we know it. So if the lying scientists know that the life couldn't exist if these factors changed much at all, wouldn't you think that they would look at the desolation of Mercury and Venus and Mars and Jupiter and say, oh my, look at our earth. There must be a God who planned all of these things, and the Bible has been right all along. No, they're not saying that. They're saying, oh, how lucky we are that all of these things happened this way when the earth was formed 4.5 billion years ago, and a planetoid the size of Mars crashed into us and didn't obliterate us, but rather created a moon that is moving away from us at 1.5 inches a year. I've got to tell you that I think, Sue-Ann, our 3.5-year-old grandchild can figure out that there's a fly in the butter of those lying scientists. In the face of all the facts, their thinking is insane. And here's my point about that. There is either, listen, there is either intelligent design or there isn't. Either God created all of the heavens and the earth, or he didn't. This isn't a buffet. You don't get to pick what you want to believe from the Bible. You either believe what the lying scientist theory is right, or you believe that God is right. Either the Bible is true, or none of it is true. Christians are going to have to get off the fence and understand that there's not a little bit of the Bible that's true, and a lot of the lying scientist theory is true. Is the truth of the Bible, or believe the lying scientist? Not one. It's one or the other, not part of it each. The pastor in the pulpit has to tell the truth. And the people of the congregation must understand the truth, or the world, or the way of this world will continue until God is not going to tolerate the disrespect and the dishonor of God's people anymore. We must either join God and accept his truth, or accept the lying scientist. How refreshing it would be if the scientists would just examine the earth and understand the glorious things that God has done. And then to teach the children in the schools what the laws and the theorems of the universe are. That frankly, the Sumerians before Christ and the Babylonians way before Christ already knew. And then in our more modern time, if you will, Aristotle, all the way up to Isaac Newton and so so many others have talked about these laws, created these laws that we're learning today. Instead, the scientists want to choose the lies of Charles Darwin and his clan of propagandists. And my point here is that God created all that there is, and God created all of this with intelligent, intentional design. And the tilt of the earth is not by happenstance. The distance of the moon is by the design of God and placed there, not out of some accident of some Mars-sized planet colliding with the earth. Which incidentally, Kathy, sounds to me like a planet of our near size colliding into us. I think that would be a total destruction, wouldn't you? Yet the lying scientists want us to believe that the moon splashed out into space, formed from Earth's mantle, like it was spilling out of some cake mix out of our mixing bowl, forms a cake on the floor, right? How often does that happen? Not mine. Sue's over there doing her stuff. She's been the most incredible wife, taking care of me. If I got a birthday coming up this week, she's already started making stuff for me over there in the mixing bowl. Now, she didn't splash out. She has done it before. And then when it splashes out on the floor, not one time has there ever formed a round cake on the floor. Not one time. But it did out in space. Same size thing crashed into the earth. Instead of obliterating it, it created the moon. All I ever cleaned up was a splattered mess. So, church family, I'm telling you, there's coming a day that we're either on God's side and that we believe His truth or not. There is no halfway. You're either all in or you're all out. The earth is either created by intelligent design or it isn't. Okay? All right, let's go out there and keep telling them the truth. Because what I've shared with you today is the truth. Amen? Amen. Let's pray. Father, we love you. We know that your world is absolutely perfect. You created that world for us to live in. And it is an absolute shame that our lying scientists that you've given such incredible mental understanding to, capacity, and yet they want to lie about what happened and disregard the Bible as if it were a lie itself. So, Father, I ask your toleration and your forgiveness